I worked as a logistics officer for a private security company. A few months ago, I was sent to a military base in a war zone. I thought I could handle the challenges. I wanted the adventure. The first day, I set up my station. The tents were lined up, and helicopters droned overhead. It was chaotic but calm. That was my first mistake. On my second night, I heard a soft tapping outside my tent. I thought it was just an animal. My heart raced a little when I opened the flap. But I saw nothing. Just the silence of the desert night. I shrugged it off and went back to sleep. Over the next few days, things got stranger. On late-night supply runs, I saw shadowy figures at the edge of the perimeter. They moved quickly, and the night air sent a chill down my spine. I told myself it was just fatigue. But I couldn't shake it. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, but it felt wrong. Some nights, I thought I heard whispers. They seemed to float on the wind. I listened hard, but I couldn't understand the words. I told myself it was all in my head. Maybe the stress was getting to me. Then one evening in the mess hall, I saw something odd. I stumbled upon a pile of old photographs on a table. They were scattered like someone tossed them aside. I picked one up. Faces stared back at me, soldiers long gone, their smiles frozen in time. A knot twisted in my stomach. I put the photo back down, my hands shaking. I probably shouldn't have dug deeper, but I did. The next day, the pictures were gone. I asked others about them, but they seemed unfazed. That made me uneasy. I think those faces wanted to be seen. Then came the worst part. One night, I stood outside, trying to clear my mind. The air felt heavy. I felt eyes on me. I scanned the area, my throat dry. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It was right next to me. "Why are you here?" It whispered. I turned quickly, but there was nobody. I could hardly breathe. My heart pounded. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. That's when the shadows started to feel closer. They were lurking, watching. I didn't know what I was up against. I stood there, frozen in place, my mind racing. The desert felt alive, as if it had secrets I couldn't understand. I questioned my sanity. Was I losing my mind? Days passed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The whispers returned, louder now. I wanted to scream for help, but I was too scared. I think about those nights all the time. I still wonder what was out there, waiting just out of sight. I'm not sure I'll ever truly know. The days blurred together, and each night felt heavier than the last. I avoided the mess hall, convinced that more faces would appear. I stuck to my duties and tried to focus on the logistics. But each supply run became more unsettling. Shadows danced at the corners of my vision, but when I turned to look, nothing was there. Then one evening, as I walked back to my tent, I stumbled upon a series of footprints leading away from the camp. They weren't military boots. The prints were smaller, almost delicate. My heart raced. Someone had been watching me, following me. I felt a surge of fear. I followed the prints into the dark, unable to stop myself. The faint whispers from before grew louder. They wrapped around me like a chilling fog. I turned on my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. It revealed nothing but sand and shadow, but my instinct screamed to turn back. Just as I was about to retrace my steps, I heard a crunching sound behind me. I froze. I pivoted slowly, scanning the darkness. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. Just the wind and the distant hum of helicopters. Then I noticed something glimmering in the sand. I knelt down, reaching for it. It was a dog tag, a military dog tag. My pulse quickened. The name read, Sergeant Martin Hale. I had never heard that name before. A chill washed over me. I pocketed the tag, feeling a weight settle over my shoulders. I needed to know more. I quickly turned back toward camp, glancing at the footprints again. They had vanished. Panic clawed at my throat. Where had they gone? I reached my tent and hastily pulled out my phone to search for information. My hands shook as I typed, but the battery was dead. I cursed under my breath and collapsed onto my cot. I should have felt safe inside my own tent, but that peace was shattered. The whispers were back, louder and more insistent. I pressed my ear against the fabric, listening. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. It was an eerie silence, broken only by my heart racing in my chest. My instincts told me that something was coming. I held my breath, waiting for a sign, a shadow, anything. That silence felt charged, alive, as if the universe had paused just for me. Then I heard the voice again, clearer this time. "Why did you take it?" It asked, and I realized it was not just a whisper anymore. "Where did you find that?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But my body wouldn't move. I felt trapped between fear and curiosity. I finally managed to push the tent flap aside, stepping into the night. I needed to confront whatever was out there. And that's when I saw a figure standing at the edge of the camp, holding something that glimmered in the moonlight. My heart stopped. This was no ghost. This was someone real. Questions flooded my mind. Who was that? Why were they here? Everything I had experienced twisted into a knot of terror and intrigue. I knew I had to go closer. As I moved forward, the figure turned, and all I could see were its eyes, dark, endless pits staring back at me. I took another step, my breath quickening. The figure whispered, "You shouldn't have come." The figure remained still, its eyes boring into mine. I could feel the air crackle with tension. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and run, but I was rooted to the spot. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely above a whisper. "Someone who knows what you found," it replied, tilting its head slightly. The moonlight cast long shadows, and the figure's face remained cloaked in darkness. My heart raced, thundering in the silence, mixing with the chilling apprehension that enveloped me. "What do you mean?" I asked, desperate for answers, even as each word felt like a mistake. The thing in front of me stepped closer, and for a moment, I thought I could make out features: a gaunt face, hollow cheeks, but the deeper I looked, the more it seemed to blend into the night. "Do you know Sergeant Hale?" The figure smiled, a twisted expression that sent a shiver down my spine. "He doesn't belong to this place anymore. And neither do you." Before I could respond, the figure raised the glimmering object in its hand, a tag, just like the one I had found. My breath caught. "Where did you get that?" I demanded. My mind raced with questions. Was this Sergeant Hale? Or was it something worse? "His spirit is restless." "They all are," the figure said, its voice smooth and cold like ice. A chill shot through me. "You shouldn't have disturbed the dead." I felt dizzy with confusion. "What do you mean?" "I just found it." I wasn't trying to do anything. I never had a chance to finish. The whispers surged back into my ears, louder than ever. They merged into a cacophony of anguish, cries of the men who had fought here, their stories twisted and forgotten. I staggered back, the sound overwhelming me, drowning out everything else. Just as quickly as it began, the noise stopped, leaving only the figure standing there, watching me. "The others in the camp, they sense it too," it hissed, leaning closer. "You won't be able to hide from what you've awakened." A dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I stepped backward, my back hitting the side of a nearby truck. The figure raised its hand, pointing at me. "You were marked the moment you took that tag," it warned. "The night will not let you go until it has what it wants." Suddenly, my thoughts flooded with images: the faces of my comrades, their laughter echoing in the mess hall. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were not just memories. Something was wrong. My heart pounded as I turned to flee back to my tent, but the figure called after me. You can't escape your fate. The shouts that erupted from the camp were sudden and chaotic. I stumbled, nearly falling as I rushed back toward the safety of my flashlit tent. Voices overlapping, alarmed, desperate. As I reached the entrance, a realization hit me. I had to get everyone out. That I nearly ripped the tent flap open, only to freeze at the sight inside. The shadows moved, and the air screamed with tension. They weren't alone. My heart sank as my gaze adjusted to the dim light within the tent. Shadows flitted across the canvas walls, their movements erratic. I called out to my fellow soldiers, but no one responded. Panic clawed at my throat as I took a step inside, the ground feeling unsteady beneath my feet. The chill from outside seemed to flood in with me. I flicked on my flashlight, the beam slicing through the darkness. In its glow, I saw them, faces of my comrades, twisted in fear, mouths wide but silent. They were huddled together, their eyes darting around the tent like prey sensing a predator. Guys! What is happening? I shouted, but my voice felt swallowed by an unseen force. I glanced at the back of the tent where the shadows danced more violently, like they were alive. A sense of dread filled the air, thicker than fog. One of my friends, Nathan, finally caught my eye. He looked like he had seen a ghost. It's them, they won't stop whispering. I can't think. His voice trembled as he pointed to the shadows looming at the edge of the tent. We're not safe here. The whispers surged again, pulling at my sanity, but they weren't just sound. They felt like fingers brushing against my skin, each caress sending chills rattling through me. I knew then the figure in the forest had spoken the truth. I had awakened something, and it was hungry. Everyone, listen to me. I said, steel creeping into my voice. We have to get out of here. But as I spoke, I realized the shadows were creeping closer from the corners of the tent. Their forms seemed to twist and warp, almost like they were solidifying. I felt a pull toward them, a tugging at my very core. Now! I shouted in desperation. The urgent tone broke through the fog, snapping the others out of their daze. That we started to move, but the shadows morphed, blocking our exit. 3 of my teammates rushed to help me push the tent flap open, the fabric stretching and straining against the weight of the darkness. Just as we managed to shove it aside, a shrill scream pierced the night, coming from somewhere in the camp. I spun around, my instincts flaring. Did you hear that? I gasped. The air thickened with fear, the stench of dread almost tangible as a new realization hit me. This was not just happening to us. The screams were everywhere. Chaos erupted. I rushed out into the night, leaving behind the dying light and the overwhelming shadows. As we spilled into the open, I saw my comrades from other tents running, eyes wide with terror. Then, without warning, a figure burst forth from the crowd. That it was the same figure from before, watching us, a sinister smile stretching across its features. Welcome to your reckoning, it hissed, its voice dripping with foreboding as the shadows behind it surged forward, surrounding us. That I turned and ran, the cries echoing behind me, desperate and pleading. We sprinted toward the forest, the only place that might offer us cover. But I knew, deep down, that whatever was haunting us wasn't just lurking in the shadows. It was eager, and it was coming for us. All I could think was, what had I really awakened? Then everything went black. I woke to a cacophony of whispers, each one creeping under my skin like a swarm of insects. My body ached, and I struggled to open my eyes. The dim light that filtered through the trees was disorienting, casting strange shapes around me. Where am I? I croaked, the sound of my own voice startling me. As I sat up, I saw Nathan next to me, his face pale and drawn. What happened? He shook his head, his eyes darting nervously. We scattered. I don't know where everyone else is. My heart raced as I quickly surveyed our surroundings. The forest felt alive, the branches moving almost as if they were watching us. The shadows thickened, creeping closer as I took in the scene. We need to find the others and get out of here. Now. Reluctantly, Nathan got to his feet. We both looked back toward the camp, visions of the chaotic scene seared in our minds. What about the figure? The whispers? He asked, glancing around, wary of our surroundings. I don't know, I said. But we can't stay here. We took a few cautious steps into the underbrush, the ground squishy beneath our boots. The air felt heavier, a palpable weight pressing down on us. I felt the familiar tug at my core, a pull urging me to look back toward the camp. But I resisted. We couldn't afford to go back. As we forged ahead, the whispers began to swell, growing louder, wrapping around us like a cold embrace. I gritted my teeth, focusing on the sound of our feet stamping against fallen leaves. Try to block it out, I urged Nathan, but my own resolve faltered as dread twisted in my stomach. Then, from somewhere deep in the woods, a chilling laughter echoed. A voice that sounded both familiar and foreign. You can't escape me. Panic surged through my veins, and I grabbed Nathan's arm. Did you hear that? I whispered urgently, scanning the shadows. Yeah, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's close. I felt a rush of adrenaline but froze when I noticed a faint glow between the trees ahead. Turning toward it, I stepped cautiously over a root that jutted from the earth. The light flickered like a dying ember, compelling me to approach. What if it leads us to the others? Nathan suggested, though uncertainty laced his tone. Or it could be a trap, I replied, my heart racing at the thought. But I was already moving forward, lured by the glow. We have to see. As I stepped closer, I saw it wasn't just a simple light, it was a series of old, ornate carvings glowing faintly on the bark of a massive tree. The figures depicted scenes of battles long lost, and at the center, a face that resembled the figure from the camp, its twisted smile frozen in time. This is what it has been drawing us to, I realized aloud, dread creeping in as I recoiled instinctively. It feeds off this. Before Nathan could respond, the whispers surged again, rising to a deafening volume that threatened to drown everything else. The air around us felt charged. I turned to Nathan, suddenly aware of the urgency. We need to go. Now. But before we could take a step back, shadows erupted from the forest floor, swirling around us like a living storm. I tried to run, but the ground felt like it was giving way, pulling me down, reaching for my very essence. Then I heard it again, the laughter echoing, you can't leave. In that moment of sheer terror, I understood whatever had been awakened was not just hunting us. It was relishing the chase. I blinked against the darkness as those shadows swirled tighter, wrapping around my legs like a clammy cocoon. My breath quickened. Nathan, we need to move. I shouted, pushing against whatever was holding me. But it felt like a thick fog, dense and unyielding. Nathan grabbed my arm, yanking me back just as I began to sink. This way. He shouted, pulling me towards a narrow gap between two trees. I didn't hesitate. I burst forward, my heart pounding in my ears, convinced that whatever waited beyond the glowing tree wouldn't let us out so easily. That we squeezed through the dreadful embrace of the shadows, and suddenly, we were free on the other side. The shrill whispers faded into the distance, replaced by the rustle of leaves in the wind. My relief was short-lived. Ahead, a clearing opened up, illuminated by what looked like dozens of flickering lanterns. But they didn't feel welcoming, they pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, as if they had a heartbeat of their own. What the hell is this place? Nathan asked, his eyes wide as he scanned the clearing. The air felt electrified, filled with an ominous energy. I could feel it too, coiling tightly in my stomach. Maybe it's a way out, I suggested, but I wasn't convinced. There were dark figures moving just at the outskirts of the light, darting in and out like phantoms. They were watching us, their forms shifting and blending with the dark trees. Or it could be worse, Nathan replied, hesitating. I could see him weighing the options, but we had little choice. So we stepped into the clearing. As we drew closer to the lanterns, I noticed they weren't glowing from within but instead reflected something more sinister, a pale white light that lit up the distorted faces of those trapped inside. My heart dropped. Each lantern held a terrified expression, mouths twisted in silent screams. "Oh God," I gasped, stumbling back. "These are people." Nathan's face turned ashen. "We have to go back," he urged, his voice cracking. But the shadows behind us shifted again, blocking our only route to safety. "Look." I pointed to the center of the clearing. In the middle stood an altar-like stone, covered in the same carvings from the massive tree we'd just fled. They twisted and writhed, drawing my eyes to the base where fresh blood pooled. It wasn't just a decoration, it was part of a ritual. "Those whispers, they're coming from this," I realized, panic pushing me into motion. "They're trying to summon something." Suddenly, the shadows at the edge of the clearing lunged forward, forming a wall that contained us. I could feel the whispers rising up, clamoring to drown every thought in my head. I rushed to grab Nathan's hand, pulling him toward the altar. As we reached it, the ground shook beneath us, and the lanterns flickered violently, casting shadows that danced and twisted in all directions. "We've got to do something," I yelled over the cacophony. "We can't just stand here." Then, as if responding to my shout, the whispers dropped to a hush. Silence enveloped us, and in that eerie quiet, I looked toward the altar. Something stirred. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. That's when I saw it, an enormous figure rising slowly from the center, its form dark as night but its eyes gleaming with an unsettling light. It locked its gaze onto mine, and the laughter returned, echoing louder than before. "You're here now." My stomach dropped. "Nathan!" I gasped. "Run!" But as we turned to flee, the shadows surged forward, and everything went black. I jolted awake, my body disoriented, panic coursing through my veins. I lay sprawled on the cold ground, surrounded by thick darkness, the echoes of that laughter fading away. Nathan was beside me, breathing heavily. "Are you okay?" I whispered, trying to steady my racing heart. He nodded but looked around, alarm evident in his eyes. "Where are we?" The ground felt uneven, rocky. I pushed myself up to sit, squinting into the faint light that emerged behind the trees. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. But we couldn't stay still, I could feel the heaviness in the air, pressing down around us. We stumbled to our feet and cautiously made our way toward the dim light. Each step felt deliberate and slow, like we were moving against some invisible current. Then, I caught sight of something glistening. It was a sharp edge exposed beneath the leaf litter. I reached down to brush away the debris, and my blood ran cold. That it was a bone human, cracked and splintered. I recoiled, clutching Nathan's arm. "This place, it's wrong." Nathan paled. "Do you think it's connected to the altar?" I had no doubt about it. "We need to find a way out." But my resolve faltered as a gust of wind whipped through the trees, carrying a low, haunting wail. "Run," Nathan urged, the urgency in his voice twisting my gut. We took off, limbs pumping, not caring where we were heading, just away from here. As we navigated through the thick brush, the trees loomed over us like watchful sentinels. Shadows darted at the corners of my vision, teasing us as we sped past. I felt the whispers creep back, clawing at my mind, echoing Nathan's fears. What if we're just leading it right to us? Whatever it is could already be here," I replied, glancing over my shoulder, scanning for any sign of movement. Then, unexpectedly, the ground dropped out at our feet as we stumbled upon what looked like a small ravine. Panic surged, but I grabbed Nathan's arm just in time, and we tumbled and slid down the rough side. When we hit the bottom, we landed in a shallow pool of murky water. I coughed and sputtered, splashing in a frenzy. "What now?" Nathan panted, drenched and terrified. That I scanned our surroundings. "I think we're hidden for the moment. We should wait." We crouched behind a cluster of jagged rocks. The air was thick and musty, and still, that low wail persisted. It seemed even closer now. Then, I saw it, a flickering figure hovering at the edge of the tree line. "I think it knows," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The figure twisted and turned, its shape becoming more defined, a ghostly silhouette, shrouded in dark threads that seemed to reach for us. "Nathan, look!" I pointed. "What if it's going to lead us out?" Just as the thought crossed my mind, the figure turned and began to move deeper into the woods, fading in and out of sight. A flicker of hope ignited inside me, but fear rapidly snuffed it out. "Do you want to follow it?" Nathan asked, uncertainty in his eyes. I hesitated. "I don't know. It could be a trap." But even as I said it, my curiosity pulled me. The figure beckoned, and I felt a strange compulsion. Maybe it's our only chance. We exchanged glances, and without another word, we followed. As we crept closer, the whispers rose to a crescendo. My heart pounded harder. The figure paused, looking back at us, its empty eyes seeming to pull me into a void. And then, everything changed. The ground beneath us rumbled, and an echoing voice shattered the silence. "You will not escape that easily." I froze, dread flooding my system, and I realized that whatever lay ahead might be far worse than what we just fled. I blinked rapidly, trying to shake off the dread that now wrapped around me like a heavy cloak. Nathan clutched my arm tighter, the warmth of his grip grounding me, even as fear danced behind my eyes. "We can't just stand here," I whispered, glancing around for any signs of movement. The figure had vanished, completely swallowed by the darkness between the trees. "We need to find shelter, or something. Or someone," Nathan added, his voice a mixture of hope and terror. We pressed ourselves against the rocks, barely able to hear one another over the echoes of that ominous voice. But as I turned to suggest we move deeper into the ravine, I hesitated. A shadow flickered at the mouth of the ravine. My heart leapt into my throat. What was that? I breathed. Nathan leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "I don't know, but it could be what we're trying to escape." Suddenly, the whispering returned, low and insistent, clawing at the edges of my mind once more. My gut twisted, urging me to run. But time seemed to slow as the silhouette emerged, a tall figure draped in tattered clothes, a face obscured by darkness. "Who are you?" Nathan yelled, his voice shaky. The figure stepped closer, the air around it thickening. "You seek a way out, but you are not alone anymore. You have awakened what lies beneath." I exchanged panicked glances with Nathan, confusion clutching at my chest. "What do you mean?" The figure tilted its head, and a low chuckle escaped its lips, sending an icy chill down my spine. "You have disturbed their rest. Now they will hunger." I staggered back, instinct driving me to put distance between us. "What do you want from us?" The figure pointed directly at Nathan. "He is marked. You both belong to this place now." I could barely breathe. I turned to Nathan, whose eyes widened with fear. "What does it mean?" I asked, my voice cracking. Before he could respond, a loud crack echoed from above, and I flinched, looking up just in time to see a massive branch snap and fall, landing perilously close to us. "Run!" Nathan yelled, finding his feet and pulling me with him. I barely registered the figure's laughter fading behind us that we sprinted deeper into the ravine, adrenaline fueling our flight. The air felt charged, oppressive. Whispering voices joined us, filling the space with urgency. "Yes, keep going. You can't stop now." I shoved my way through the underbrush, branches scratching at my arms. I felt lost, the terrain twisting and turning in ways I didn't understand, but Nathan's presence propelled me forward. Then we came to a clearing. A dim glow hovered in the center, illuminating a set of ancient stones, strange markings carved into them. Symbols I couldn't comprehend but felt familiar, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. "That's," I murmured, but Nathan interrupted. "Look." He pointed. To my horror, I saw them, dark shapes slinking between the trees. They were descending on our position, glimmers of eyes reflecting the dim light. "Nathan, we have to move." I breathed, my heart racing. We turned to escape, but the ground trembled again, and a heavy voice boomed from above. "You cannot leave this place." In that terrifying moment, I understood. Whatever was happening, it was only just beginning. We stumbled back, feeling the weight of the ground beneath us shift and threaten our stability. The figures loomed closer, their eyes glinting with an unsettling light. Panic surged through me. "Nathan, there." I pointed toward the far end of the clearing, where the trees seemed to create a pathway. Weakened before I could finish, a deep rumbling shattered my thoughts, shaking the air around us. I caught a glimpse of something massive edging into view, a shadow that moved with a will of its own. "Nah, just it can't be real," Nathan muttered, taking a step back. It was as if the very darkness itself had taken form, an enormous creature draped in shadows with elongated limbs and a gaping maw. My breath hitched in my throat, and adrenaline flooded my veins. They're here," I whispered back to Nathan, feeling the panic rise as I turned to face the advancing shapes behind us. We were surrounded. "I don't want to die here," he said, his voice barely a whisper, and I could see the terror etched on his features. The glow from the stones flickered, throwing an eerie light across the area. Something about the markings spoke deeply to me, like a language buried in my memory. I hesitated, torn between fear and an overwhelming curiosity, but the weight of our impending doom pushed me onward. "Nathan, we can't look back," I said, seizing his hand. "We have to trust whatever those stones are, maybe they'll help." With one last glance at the writhing shadows flanking us, I ran toward the ancient stones. The whispering grew frantic, almost pleading, filling my mind with echoes of ancient warnings and promises. As we neared the stones, the air shifted, vibrating with an energy that thrummed beneath our feet. The markings began to glow, brighter with each step we took. I felt a pull, drawing me to a specific stone in the center. "Nathan, touch it!" I shouted, desperate to harness whatever power it may offer. He reached out warily, fingers brushing against the surface. Instantly, a surge of energy raced through us. The whispers became clearer, shaping into fragmented sentences, and I could finally make out words. "The marked one, the key, this must end." Before I could process the significance, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows. They recoiled, shifting backs like a writhing mass, and I glanced over my shoulder to witness the inky forms retreating. "What did we do?" Nathan gasped as the glowing light enveloped us, pushing out the terrors lurking just beyond the stones. The ground trembled again, but this time it felt different, as if something was awaking rather than closing in on us. The towering creature shifted, hesitating as if drawn by a magnetic force that I locked eyes with Nathan, both of us grasping the enormity of the moment. "This is just a beginning, isn't it?" I asked, dread creeping back in. But before he could respond, a crack split the air, and I felt myself being pulled into an unseen current. Heat radiated from the stones, drawing me closer, blurring the line between reality and the unknown. Then everything went dark. I woke up gasping, a cold sweat covering my skin as I pushed myself upright. The familiar stir of urgency raced through me, but the shadows, the oppressive weight of them had lifted. I was in my tent, the chaos of the camp just outside. My heart hammered in my chest as I blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights overhead. I could hear voices murmuring in the distance, some of my comrades getting ready for the day. That I took a moment to steady my breathing, running a hand over my face as I processed my surroundings. Had it all been a vivid nightmare? I glanced around the small tent, noting my gear neatly stacked, just as I had left it. But something felt off. The stillness in the air, the absence of the chaos that usually accompanied life on the base, made my heart sink. That I hesitated, torn between the desire to delve deeper into the mystery and the instinctual urge to escape the memories of what I had experienced. I crawled out of the tent, the warmth of the desert sun bathing me in its light, but the brightness felt betraying. Outside, soldiers moved about, laughing and joking, oblivious to the unsettling quality that tinged the air. The whispering still echoed faintly in the back of my mind. I scanned the area, searching for Nathan, hoping to find some sense of clarity in our shared experience. I spotted him near the mess hall, gathered around others, bottles of water in hand. He looked normal, untouched by what we had endured. "Nathan!" I called out, pushing through the bustling camp. As he turned to face me, an expression of confusion crossed his face. "You okay?" he asked, concern coloring his tone. I think we need to talk," I said, my throat dry. He nodded, glancing around before moving toward a quieter corner. "Did you dream about it?" he asked, his voice low, a sense of urgency creeping in. I nodded. "It's like everything we felt is stuck in my head, but it feels like no one else remembers. It can't just be us, right?" The whispers, the shadows. He trailed off, eyes darting to the other soldiers who passed by, blissfully unaware. It felt surreal. We exchanged a nervous glance, a silent understanding wrapped in shared trauma. The weight of what we had encountered lay heavy on my chest, yet the environment dictated a false sense of normalcy. "We need to make sure no one else is affected," I pressed, my voice urgent. Nathan agreed, but no plan for action seemed viable. A sense of dread built in me, the possibility that whatever we had disturbed was still, somehow, lurking in the shadows of this place, feeding off our unspoken fears. The camp might look bustling and alive, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that shadows were gathering just outside the perimeter. A sudden explosion of laughter drew my attention, laughter that echoed far too brightly against the weight that burdened my thoughts. I saw several soldiers gathered around their phones, sharing memes, oblivious. But what if they'd already been touched by what had dwelled in those woods? I wanted to warn them, to shake them from their carefree state. Before I could voice my concerns, I caught sight of a flickering shadow near the edge of the camp, a familiar darkness shifting between the tents. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. "Nathan, do you see that?" I whispered, his eyes squinted toward the source, a frown crossing his face. "What is it?" "Just the shadows, they play tricks under the tents." Before I could respond, I felt the tug of something deep within me, a pulse that crackled with energy, like the ground beneath my feet had awoken after our encounter. It barreled through me, urging me to confront the shadows. "We should go check, just to be safe," I said, already walking toward the edge without waiting for his response. As I neared, the whispers swelled once more, intimate and inviting. As I peered into the gathering darkness, a sense of anticipation coiled in my gut. But then a voice, sharp and desperate, boomed through me, clawing at my senses. "You can't escape." The energy intensified, pulling everything forward. I turned to Nathan, his face pale, eyes wide. "We can't go back," I gasped. But instead of fear, I saw something lingering behind his gaze, something wavering between dread and acceptance. "Maybe we shouldn't fight it," he said quietly, seeming almost entranced. I hesitated, wrapped in uncertainty, feeling the very essence of that place merge into me. The shadows were no longer just threats, they were whispers of history yearning to be acknowledged. I could see that much now. Somewhere deep inside, having witnessed the restless spirits of the soldiers long gone, I realized, perhaps every soldier here bore some untold story, lost in the sands, intertwined with the haunting fabric of this war. Glancing back at the camp, the faces of my comrades blurred in my vision, and for a split second, memories of laughter and camaraderie mixed with the ghosts of grief. This was a reality I couldn't ignore. And as I stood there under the weight of the sun, the whispers weaving in and out of my mind, I understood that I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. Whatever I had awakened that night remained in waiting, and the shadows would always be there to remind me, at least for now. I moved forward toward the darkened edge, hand in hand with Nathan. Shadows and whispers our only companions as we crossed back into the unknown. A lingering question tugging at the back of my mind, were we meant to be just echoes of the past? It was a notion I couldn't shake, and maybe I wouldn't have to.